Hello, my next level friends. Super happy to have you today in the podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the many hats we wear. You as an artist, you know very well what that means. We got to do everything these days. Making art in the studio is just one part of the job description to be an artist in the world today. We got to do the marketing. We got to do the presentations. We got to do the cleaning. We got to do everything, the transportation. It's a big job. Being an artist today is a big job. I never thought it was going to be this huge of a job until I became an artist. So it's going to be a great show. I have with me here a good friend that you guys know well, Drew Harris, joining me all the way from Malaysia.
Resources, inspiring interviews, business practices, and practical advice to take your art career to the next level. Join Sergio Gomez in today's Artist Next Level and get ready to take control of your career.
Drew, super happy to have you here. How are you today?
I'm happy to be here.
Well, today we're going to talk about hats, and something I learned about you was the love for the hats. So how's that?
Yes, indeed. Well, it's thank you so much for having me. It's great. Always love to talk to another artist especially that wears many hats. Yeah, the hat. They've been with me for my entire career. And I think that was a sort of, a little bit of, sensitive ego and that kind of thing, having the hat to sort of hide behind or under, as we start our careers, right? And I also have a serious issue with some, male pattern balding. So I thought, well, in my 20s when I started working, it was kind of a way to sort of hide the things. And then it became a part of my attire, and it became a part of my, public persona. I was always wearing a hat. I had no loyalty to any team or anything, but the hats are always, synonymous with me as an artist. Even as
you know what? Yeah, no, you know what? And since we started kind of like chatting, for those of friends who may have not heard that one episode where we talk about our story, how we met, you got to go check it out. It's a really good one. We're not going to go through all the details of that. But I was inspired by Drew many, many years ago when I didn't know him. I saw a show. He's in Chicago. 20 years passed. We met online through social media. And I think the first time that we had like a Zoom meeting, you were wearing a hat. And, so since I know you like in real life, I've always associated you with a hat, and you have like the baseball hats, kind of what you wear, and I love it. Today you're wearing one from New York, which is your New York hat. So for the friends who are listening to the podcast and they cannot see your video, I'm wearing also a hat, to make this episode quite special. Mine is an Adidas hat, which I love, my favorite hat. I'm not a person who wears a lot of physical hats on my head,
because
but
you have hair. You have hair.
Yeah.
You have lots of it.
And lots of white hair, and that kind of people recognize my white hair. So, but I love hats though. I mean, hats are fun. I think that they're really good, especially on one of those days I don't have time to do my hair. Just get a hat. I only own 4 hats. So it's the one that I am wearing now. I have one which is a little bit more formal type of hat.
Yes.
I have one that you will recognize. My good friend Drew Harris, when he came to Chicago, gave me a Batman hat, which is super, super awesome, super cool. I really love it.
It'll help you scale all of the Chicago, towers.
There you go. And I have a Loyalty Canada hat.
Yes.
Also,
that was my favorite hat for many years, and I gave that to you as a special gift. You are Mexican, you are American, but that's your link to Canada.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is what I love about these hats. So the day you came to Chicago and we picked you up in the airport, you gave me this one, which is the Batman hat, right? And then when you left, right before you left, and we wrapped you at the airport, you gave me the Canada hat. So it's a nice progression, right?
Yeah, hats are interesting. When I left Chicago to go to Canada,
yeah.
So I left you with the Canada hat.
Yeah.
And I had bought a hat here in Malaysia, and I'd taken it with me. I usually take, when I travel, I usually take 3 or 4 hats because some of them get, sweaty when you're working or walking or hiking or whichever you're doing. So I had this one hat with the sort of French fleur-de-lis on it. And, things happen for a reason, right? I give my hats away often. I've bought hundreds of hats and I give them away, even though they're used. They become sort of mementos for people. And I gave you, of course, the Batman hat, which was brand new, the Canada hat, which was kind of aged and, really well worn. And then when I got to Canada, I had this fleur-de-lis hat. And I thought, well, you know what? I stopped at a friend's place. And while I was sitting out on his terrace, we were talking, there was, throughout the terrace of his house, little fleur-de-lis, brass fleur-de-lis that he had put up as decoration. And I was wearing the fleur-de-lis hat. And it was just instant. I took the hat off, I handed it to him, and I said, I think you need to have this hat. And he's been wearing it ever since. So there you go. Hats are really important, and they are a part of our persona. This hat, this New York hat, actually started many years ago when I went to New York with my wife, and I bought this hat, which, as you can see, is pretty worn.
Wow.
And it's old. It's the 47 New York hat. I think it's synonymous with, anytime you visit New York, you buy a Yankees hat. Some might argue that. But the hat, the Yankees hat that I'm wearing now is an interesting, funny story, which also involves another artist.
Okay,
so
let's hear it.
Another artist was in town, or was in New York, and I was here. He's a Malaysian artist, very successful, well-known artist, colleague of mine for 30 years. And he was in New York, and I said, hey, would you do me a huge favor? And I don't mind paying for it at all. If you're down and around Times Square, would you be able to go and get me another black stretch cap, the stretch type, not the clip type, stretch type, New York Yankees hat? And I said, but it has to be black and it has to be the stretch type. I like the stretch type. That balding section at the back just doesn't look good. So he said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And he returned home, and we met up a couple of weeks later after his return, and he presents me with this hat, which is not a stretch cap. It's not black, and it's white. And I thought, okay, well, then there must have been a translation issue there, because I'd asked, specifically for a black, to replace this aging old gray one. But I was very thankful anyway that I got my authentic New York cap. And there you go, white or otherwise.
So for you, almost like each hat is associated with a story, a memory, something that you seen, you remembered, which is different. Like for me, I don't have that association with the hat. But for you, because, what you just mentioned, I think each hat probably brings you back somewhere.
Yes, indeed. In fact, there's another interesting story here too. I recently bought a Boston hat, which was one of my favorite identities. As a corporate identity designer back in the 80s, I've always really loved the Boston identity. I think it's just a really beautiful mark, as is the New York Yankees and many of the marks. And I befriended and have developed a really nice friendship with a couple in and around Boston in Massachusetts. So I thought, in honor of them, and anytime we, sit on Zoom and we have, general chats, I would honor them by buying a Boston hat. Well, as soon as I saw them the first time, I showed them the new Boston hat. And they went, oh, no, not at all. We're New York Yankees fans. We don't like Boston at all. And I thought, well, there you go. So there's another interesting story about the hats we buy.
Exactly.
Sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they welcome you places. Sometimes they're not as welcoming. Depends what you're wearing, right?
Yeah. So are you sponsored by Adidas there, my friend?
I wish I was, but no, unfortunately not as big as that for that just yet. But it's funny because also the saying, right? Like, you're a person of many hats. This idea has become of a person who has a lot of things on their shoulders or a lot of things that you manage. So it's often associated with this idea of switching hats. Like for the artist, I'm the artist hat, or I'm the parent, or I'm the professor, or whatever, right? Then seems like the more things we have at our disposal, at our control, usually we get that comment, oh, you can wear many hats. And we're going to talk about a little bit of that analogy, because, I have a problem with that analogy, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And what I have come to...
Look forward to that one.
Yeah, I have come to kind of like come to terms with that in a different way. And maybe I'll start it. I'll tell you why I have a problem with the analogy of you're a person of many hats. Okay. Because I associate hats, and maybe that's just me, with like different personalities, right? So, for example, I put the hat as the parent, right? When I'm a parent here at the house. When I was teaching at the college, well, I would put the professor hat, right?
Yes.
And then, so that implies a different personality, implies also a different behavior of mine, right? Because I'm in a different setting. When I'm at the gallery, when I'm the gallery director, well, I wear my gallery director hat, right? As when I'm the friend and we sit down and have coffee, then I have a different hat. And when I'm the artist, I wear the artist hat when I go in my studio. So here's the problem that I have with that analogy, that I think I don't like that we have an artist hat. I think that the artist is what's inside the hat. And so the art is not like, okay, now I'm the artist, now I take it off because now I'm going to be something else. I'm no longer the artist, right? So we never leave the artist per se. So the hats is the like different things that we do, but even if I'm a parent, or if I'm a friend, or if I'm a professor, or if I'm a gallerist, I'm still the artist. And
it's be interesting too.
That way.
Well, that's an interesting thought, because I wonder, we should do a Wikipedia check. Where did that terminology come from, that we wear, we're a man of or woman of many hats. We wear many hats. I'd like to know the origin of that, because it's I agree. We wear a hat for business. We wear a hat for parenting. We wear a hat for special occasions. We wear a hat in our studios when we're private, to blown social situations. We're wearing many different hats. And it comes down not only to the metaphor of that, but the idea that, oftentimes we go out here to meet friends or to do a social function. And I'll ask my wife, when we leave, is this the appropriate hat? Because I will always wear a hat or a cap or something. And she'll say, no, not that one. Put the cap on, or put the beret or whatever. She really sort of, it's because the hat itself changes our physicality and our persona.
Yeah.
Right? But the meaning of that, the various hats, that's a very interesting. So why is it that you don't care for that term, the man of many hats?
Yeah, and I talked about this in some of my podcasts or in interviews. Like sometimes when they said, "Hey, so you wear many hats," I say, "Well, I like to think that we are artists, and that's first and foremost our love. And once you are an artist, you're always an artist. Doesn't matter if maybe at the moment what you may be doing right now may not feel like it. For many of our friends, perhaps listening." Maybe you are an artist who right now you have a day job and you're trying to escape that day job and building your art career on the side. And sometimes you feel like, I have my day job, therefore I'm not the artist until I walk in the studio. And I like to challenge that notion and say, no, you are an artist. Exactly. You are an artist.
I would say that we don't even differentiate between the certain, many hats that we wear, or the duties that we have, such as parenting, or, a businessman, teacher, artist. Yeah, we're an individual, right? But I think these are jewelry. The fifth for us is is a form of, I would say in my case, the male jewelry. I like to just wear a hat because it's a statement piece.
Yeah, totally.
Under that hat and in my head and in my body, I'm still the artist that has many elements. I still have to do the dishes. I still have to parent. Still have to, go do groceries, and I still have to teach or do a mentoring session. And I also have to paint. So really, the hat, it's an interesting analogy. I'd like to look back, the history of that statement and where it came from.
Where it came, that's right.
Yeah, because it's it'll be something different for each person, I think.
Yeah. And like talking about it, in terms of our responsibilities as artists, I think also there are seasons in life in which different responsibilities demand different reactions from us, different ways of working. I know you're an artist who have a long trajectory. You have traveled the world. When I saw your show in Chicago, by the time I saw the show, you were already gone. You were, I don't know, somewhere else traveling, your next destination that art took you in. And, how have you seen also, like the different responsibilities that this career demand, have formed you as the artist you are today? And particularly because you also come from a design background, who turned into an art career, and now you're doing more than that. You're also doing mentoring and all these other things. How all these changes in life, have all these many hats that you have wear.
Huh?
All these many hats that you have wear, over
Well, yeah, and again, do we hide behind the hats? Do we hide, our history behind the hats we wear? Do we suggest that we're, an artist wearing a hat and that's it, to hide what we've done in the past or to sort of downplay that kind of thing? And, talking to you, I mean, I can say it, this is reciprocal. Yeah, I also look at you as a designer, as a gallery owner, as a teacher. We've all done it. We worked in the agency businesses, and now we've migrated into the artwork and doing art full time, as well as managing what you do. I don't know how you manage everything you do, and you are, in that sense, the man of many hats. But in art, I think it's just a natural progression, isn't it? Really, there was something said to me when I was in college and I think it was the first day of college, in design college. My design professor said, there's nothing new, so get over yourselves and just, adapt, right? And when you find that you are not enjoying it anymore, it's time to get out. And I've remembered that, my entire career, my entire life. When something isn't working, it's time to get out. It's time to change the focus and the direction. Put on a new hat. So in that case, in 1990, or earlier than that, really, in the mid 80s, I began painting, and I began realizing that my focus was being drawn towards the painting and less so on the design. And eventually about 1990, I think I wasn't enjoying what I was doing as a designer. So I had to change hats. I left that hat behind. I left the graphic design suit and the whole business aspect behind to change careers. But what happened was I learned from all of that. I learned some valuable lessons as a designer. And that took me into a painting career. And then that led me into, having to do the business of art. And then eventually, how many decades later, meeting you. And it's all come full circle, doing design again, doing social media, or perhaps media, and the fine arts itself. And I still have to do the dishes. That's the crazy.
You still have to walk the dogs every day, right? They don't care who you are.
Yeah, so those things don't change. That hat doesn't change. The household hat, the things that have to be done, the groceries that have to be bought, the dogs that have to be walked, the kids that have to be, nurtured, that all comes part and parcel. That's one hat. And then we have the career hats. And those hats are many.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I love that comment that you said about that advice that you received, and how you still remember that and how it still affects or has an effect on how you see your career as an artist. This idea that, when something is like the passion begins to wear out, it's time to look elsewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think, the other part of that comment that this particular person made to an entire class was that, by the way, you think you're great, but there's nothing new. So get over yourselves. But what is new is your interpretation of that. So, there was, by that point in the 70s and 80s, we'd seen a lot of development in art and design, right? And there was very little, in a way, new. And we just we take what we've learned and we adapt to it or adapt it to our own particular, requirements. So in that way, it still remains new, but the concept behind it will always have some sort of historical reference,
Mm-hmm.
And especially in type and design and that kind of stuff. So I think that has led then to, the mentoring thing, where you and I are working together as mentors with Dr. Yanina. And, that whole thing comes and says, well, I have artists and you have artists coming to you saying, I see so much that is similar to my work. So I guess nothing's new. How do I create something new? And you think, well, you can. Absolutely. Because you are just twisting what you see, or maybe perhaps see in multiple areas, and put your signature on it. And there is a way of doing it. Everybody's got their own signature. So, yeah.
It's so interesting. We I always think of that. We don't make art in a vacuum, right? We make even the most abstract of works, or the most thing that we want to do, the most separate from reality, still has that memory, that aspect that was grasped from somewhere to make what we may think to be art. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Inspiration. I flipped through, magazines, art books from, Renaissance right through to current day. And you pick up an element there that will inspire you. It's maybe a section of a painting or a technique. The next thing you know, you're on the go, and you make it your own. But the elements were already created somewhere else. You're just putting your own signature on it. And I think that that's really important, particularly today, because we see, if you just do a 20 minutes of scrolling through Instagram, and you're going to see something that you've done in the past or were interested in the past. It's going to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You'll find
which that brings me to something I was thinking of as you just said that. Do you go back and look at the work that you have done, let's say 20 years ago or 15 years ago? How often do you do that? And what do you get from doing so? And then I'll share kind of, in my own experience. I'm so curious to ask you about that.
Well, I definitely want to hear what you say. I do and I don't. I mean, I don't, because I don't have a lot of it, available to me easily, unless I go searching for it. They might be in drives or in old catalogs, and I'm not about to sort of open my work unless someone's interested in it. What I focus on is today, and what I'm going to be doing today or tomorrow. And perhaps, that's my personality. I don't want to look back. I want to look forward. And so that is one element, but I often get presented with it because someone will invariably find me on Instagram or on wherever I'm seen on social media, and they will say, "Oh, I was at House yesterday, and we happened to see one of your works. Here's a picture of it." And it might be from something that was done in late 80s, early 90s. And in a way, I kind of go, ooh, I kind of cringe,
Did I do that? You're right.
the growth that we've had over, say, a 30-year career, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's exponential. So when you look back on it, you go, "Ooh, I'm not sure if I wanted to see that or not." It was good then, mainly because I didn't have the knowledge in expanding my materials or methods or whichever. So things that I've done since, I can look back now and I look at a lot of the work and I say, needs improvement.
That's interesting. Yeah, the way I look at the past of looking at as a professional artist is I kind of divide my work in two: before digital and after digital. Before digital, if I want to see my work before digital, I have to dig in a box of slides and put it against the window, or looking at old magazine or old printed material, not computer based. Anything that post digital, I have a folder in my Dropbox with all the artwork that's digital, and I have everything there. And it's how and I was thinking about this the other day, how interesting that I got to live, that transition between analog and digital. I started my art career in a day when you would take a picture with a 35 millimeter camera, then you would take that to the shop to get the wait 3 days to get the slides back. Then you had to take like this really fine point pen and put like the titles, and if you screw it up, like you had to like erase it or put like white out, and then send that to somewhere. And then but I lived that transition when we went from the analog to the digital. And the other day I was looking at my work from the past, from some 20 years ago or so, when I was in graduate school, and I found a painting which I had totally forgotten about, which quite interesting painting. It's a figure. As you know, I love to work with the abstract figure.
That's right.
But in that figure, I actually glued like different
slides.
No, like what I did is I actually glue like different computer parts that connect connectors, like an adapter from back then. They were not USB. They were like these bigger ones. I don't even remember what they were connections, but it would connect from one computer to another, like a network, or the monitor to the desktop. And those were parts of the figure, and the figure is kind of connected to them, kind of like parts coming out of it. And I thought, like, geez, I think that probably that piece, in a way, I was thinking about the future.
Yeah.
I was really like thinking about the future of this new world that I had no idea I was going to live through. And now to think, that made me think like, so I lived the transition from analog to digital, and now we're about to live the transition from digital to also AI, artificial intelligence. Is right here, and I'm going to live it. I'm going to see that change, and it's quite a significant, I think, for all of us as artists who live right now, to be able to have lived throughout these seasons in markers in the history of life.
Well, yeah, I mean, it comes in all forms too, and I love it. Yeah, I love what you say, and I can recall those Tupperware bins filled with slide materials. And I remember moving out of a studio in probably 1995, maybe, moving from one studio to the next and having these bloody big boxes filled with rolls of film, E6 processing that hadn't been cut and put in slides, and that, they were in their cellophane sleeves. And I looked at this box, and it was all like a big box of spaghetti. And I just remember my contractor at the time, I said, I don't want to take it with me. And I don't want to go through it. So throw it out. And I think he did. And I think although, it may surface again, who knows? But but that box was, in hindsight, that was probably not a wise thing to do. But at the moment, it was kind of like, I just didn't want to deal with all of that slide stuff. And that was when we were moving into digital, in the late 90s, something like that. And I realized this stuff was almost redundant. No one's going to be looking at my slides anymore. And to go through it would have taken, half a decade. So I thought, I'm just going to get rid of it and start fresh. And, in hindsight, I miss that. But but having gone through into digital, fantastic. And I feel like I never really grasped it entirely at the beginning with digital stuff. And now we're into the AI, as you say. I was having a hard time figuring out how a telephone worked with a wire, now, and then all of a sudden I was holding a cell phone, and now, virtually I can do everything on my business on this little tiny device. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Development of that.
Yeah.
So but what I still remain to do, and I still steadfastly remain, interested in, is being a visual artist. I still have to put paint down. I still have to play with mediums, tactile. So digital can never take that away at all.
Yeah, right. And
document it.
Yeah, exactly. I think for many artists, the transition and the growth of digital and technology in general, thinking about hats, brought in a bigger, heavier hat.
Yes.
Because before, you would walk in your studio. If you didn't have an actual phone line in your studio, the phone would never ring. Nobody would ever call you. Nobody would, ever distract you from the process, the focus that you had. Nowadays,
anyway.
Yeah, no, and nowadays, your phone is in your pocket. Your phone is everywhere. Your phone, and I think for kind of speaking in a practical way, as we are talking here, I feel that a lot of artists have this weight of this big hat. It's like a mariachi hat. Not one of these.
Yeah, that's great.
But it's heavy, and you
there's not Mexican in you right there.
Exactly. You better not tilt too much because that hat might crush you, But I think it's a big weight for many artists to feel that all this technology is an add-on to what we have to do as artists, and it becomes heavier and heavier. And for many artists, I think it's a struggle. It's a daily.
But I think, the struggle as it is, we struggle with the same amount in our careers, learning new mediums or methods or learning new techniques, such as, if we were photographers or we use photography-based, cameras were progressing, almost by the day. So, you had to figure out those cameras. It's no different. We have to figure out our paints. We have to figure out all the elements of making artwork more effectively and, concerned with conservation of our work. It's all part of the learning process,
But I think there's a difference, though, and I'll tell you what the difference is. Yeah, so I think the difference is those devices, like everything that you mentioned, did not talk back to us. We're not designed to keep us hooked. Right now, every app that you use in your phone is psychologically designed, hooked to pull you back in and to hook you in.
Yeah, and so what are your feelings? Say, for example, addiction is everywhere, and particularly in this new age of media, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm easily addicted to this stuff, as like everyone,
like everybody. Yeah.
We sit down and we think we're looking for one thing, and the next thing you know, it's 2 hours later, and you've been crouched over your table, coffee in hand, scrolling through tens of thousands of images, right? So I don't know what the question I was going to ask, actually. Sorry, I was not there. But it draws us in. You say it's keeping us hooked, right? How do we use that then? If we know that this is the reality of it, right? And if these mediums are bringing us in, the social medias, the technology, and so forth. What's your advice to artists to break away from that? Is it kind of a schedule, or is it a clean break from it? But if we do a clean break, we can't use it.
No,
media.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, and that's kind of like why I'm talking about it, like I'm kind of expressing what many express, the reality of the world today. As you say, we are all susceptible to, I'm just going to check what my friends are doing. And then an hour later, like, oh, shoot, I forgot to do all the things I was supposed to do, follow up on that email that somebody was waiting for me because now it's too late. So, and because
there's
this
a social thing too, I think.
Yeah.
When we don't check, we get depressed. We think, I'm losing up. I'm not keeping up. No one knows I exist. And then we turn around a moment later and we think, okay, I'm just going to give it this one shot. I'm just going to go through for 10 minutes. And 2 hours later, I'm more depressed because now I've seen everything my friends are doing and better than I am.
Yeah.
And the things that I've always wanted to achieve, the nice place in, Cancun, Mexico, and, a house in the Maldives, and, rock climbing and exhibitions at the Tate Modern, all of those things that I want to do as an artist. And that is what I'm driven to succeed in my work, so I can achieve some of those little things, the nice little house in the Maldives or whichever, all of a sudden is unattainable because someone else has done it. And now I'm depressed because I'm not sitting doing it. I'm looking at their success and not my own. And I think that there's also that element of the addiction becomes now much more psychological, and it becomes much more depressing. I'm sure the anxiety medications in the world have just, ramped up to new heights because of social media.
Yeah, and those things, the byproduct of all this, I truly believe is not by accident, but by design. People who created these apps, the way they are, they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what, the human interaction and behavior, their behavior, especially psychologists, you name it, who work on these things day and night to make sure that they are hooked, to make sure that we cannot have enough of it. So I think, my advice that I always give to artists is that, as much as everybody else, that I love technology. I love new apps. I love to try. I love to share kind of what's working right now. And if I'm not careful myself, I'm very easily prone to the same thing. Try the newest app, spend 2 hours here, 2 hours there, and just never ends because every day there's a new app. Every day.
You are really, I think, though, in many ways, we look to you, and this is to give you real credit. We look to you as being sort of the explorer, the one that's at the front of the rope, and we're behind holding it, waiting to see what you discover. Right. And I think that there's always a need for someone like that. You are the person to do that.
Right.
And that's how you're driving your business, is that someone's got to try it and someone's got to see how it works and how well it will work for the greater body of us. The many that are behind holding the rope, watching you discover. So now you can use that information. You've seen the rights and the wrongs. And so can
absolutely. Yeah. Somebody's got to be the dummy in the crash test of the new car, right?
No, we're never going to let you crash.
So kind of like the advice, that I give, for many artists who are listening or watching this is very consistent. And I've talked about this many times as I like to be practical. And the practical advice is always, when you're going to make your post in the morning or at any time that you're going to do your job as an artist of sharing your art with your audience, start there. Don't start by looking at where everybody else is doing, but first start with your own agenda, and don't be done with your own agenda before you spend any second looking at the DMs or the posts of your friends. Because the problem is, when you have an idea, like you wake up in the morning, today I'm going to make a post of, this thing I'm doing in my studio. So you open the app, you scroll 3 times, and you see somebody with a better studio or somebody with a better caption, and you start second guessing yourself, like, geez, it's not good enough. Maybe I should rethink my thing again. So I think we waste too much time overthinking the perfect post, the perfect caption, the perfect And I'm one who believes there's no such thing, because first of all, the algorithms are going to prevent your audience from seeing, everything.
But you not think though, you not think we have a subconscious that we don't really consider, for example, self-conscious, or the when I'm looking at something yesterday and I'm scrolling and I see a particular post that I like the design elements in it, but it doesn't register. It's not necessary to me. It's not necessary at the moment. I just like the elements that are there. And the next morning I wake up and I think, I'm going to do up an ad for myself. I'm going to do a post and it's going to have these components. And then what you're saying is that instead of me posting it, I go online and I happen to see that ad again. And I say, well, did I just copy that?
No, I think you're totally right. And I think, sometimes it's consciously and sometimes it's unconsciously. But it is what it is. We, when you think about it, we are bombarded by all this imagery, like back to back, so in such a rapid pace. I was reading the other day about an article on Time Magazine about how also, just as we talk about the changes that we artists have experienced, how like kids' TV shows have changed so much. If you compare a little, 5-year-old kid TV show now versus like 20 years ago, where it says, they have to change something every 10 seconds in that show because the kids doesn't have that anymore. Yeah, doesn't have that attention span anymore. And so it is the world changing, right? And how much it affects us.
So I think the message here really is just this idea that while social media is good, I mean, it's a great tool. I don't have to go sending packages of slides to a gallery.
Right.
Now.
Mm-hmm.
All my digital media can be put on my Instagram or my Facebook or whichever platform I choose, and I can keep up with the techniques and the everything from Artivive to whichever shows something new, and someone eventually, and I can guide that information to the people that I want to have see it, and I can maybe move that algorithm in that direction. And I think that's a really good thing that social media has done for us. It's made our jobs a lot easier. Communicate the world to a big world. We don't have to, and it's cost free essentially.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, but there's a psychological cost as well, and that I think is an important thing that will likely be addressed, more and more lately. And in fact, in my own feed, looking through my scrolling on my Instagram, for example, I've noticed perhaps I've stopped at more of these affirmation posts and things that will say, believe in yourself, don't worry about what you did tomorrow or yesterday, and today, tomorrow hasn't happened, and so I get stuck reading these things. And I'm 10 seconds on that site. And the next thing the algorithm shows is that I'm seeing more of those from various sources. And I actually think it's probably where we're going. It's to show that, to say, hey, everything's okay. Yeah, you know what? Some social media can be depressing. It can guide you or direct you in the wrong direction, or can lead you in the wrong direction. But here, you're okay, just step back, focus on what you need to do as an artist, and apply it to the social media of your choice, but be smart about it. And that's why we come to you. Look what you offer. You have gone through all of those, the challenging times with a new app or a new program and that kind of thing. And you've done all the testing. Now we come to you and you say, yes, you can do this, but I'd advise you not to do that. And do that, and we take that advice, and the next thing you know, our feeds become much more, looked at. The algorithm is directing our work to our, the audience we want, and it's all because of you, really. And I thank you for that, because I surely couldn't have done it. So
yeah, no, I think. Thank you for that for sure. And and I think the big lesson, as you mentioned too, is to have patience, right? For everyone listening and watching, have patience. Just as we gotta have patience with all the hats we wear, and realize that it's not easy. It's just kind of the way it is. One hat over the next one, and the next one, and they just keep going over and over and over our heads, and that's just kind of the world in which we live.
Now we look completely ridiculous, but that's okay.
Yeah, but it is kind of how it is. And I want to leave, as we wrap it up today, I want to leave our friends with maybe a couple words of advice, one from you, one from me, on what has helped you in your career and maybe in recent years to kind of deal with all the pressures of being an artist today, and what has helped you to manage those many hats that you wear.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I mean the answers could be long and lengthy. I think one of the things was having a good set of friends, having a community. That community is really important, and I think more so than the like-minded creative types. For example, Art NXT Level was what saved me from myself in many ways here. And I'm the first to admit that, it was a difficult time. That was pre-pandemic. And then as we entered into pandemic, when you and I met, and I thought, I need some help. I need a community. And the community came to me. And we're not all like-minded. We don't paint the same way we do. We're not the same age in some cases. We're definitely not in the same environments. And yet I built a community, or have the community help build me, really. And that I think is the biggest advice I can give. Find a community, whether it be through Art NXT Level or through a community of support, whether it's photographers network or social media, any kind of social group, hiking, get involved in a group, because I think there is more power in numbers than we can imagine. And social media is not going to do that. Scrolling, sitting at home, thinking that those, 72 likes that you got from the people, that they're not your family.
Right.
Really. And they're not your tribe. So get out there and get engaged, interact, ask questions, give answers, and I think it's a really vibrant thing. It's changed my life. And I look forward to every day getting up. I may not be working every day, and I don't work every day as an artist, but I'm thinking. That's the important thing. And I'm not just allowing other people to think for me. I'm engaged. And that's the really important. A lot of us just fall into this sad, following others rather than being the leaders, And I thank you guys for this. Dr. Yanina, especially, yourself. What can I say? My wellness is better, and stronger and more committed. And you are, you're driving what we all need to do as artists, really. And through the mentoring program, look at it, the people we're meeting, and we're changing lives. And there is not a better feeling than stepping away from a mentoring session and realizing weeks later, seeing the results of that 1 hour or 2 hours in someone. What a gratifying feeling.
One of the most gratifying things for me is, as you said, you came to the Art NXT Level, to the community for help, but now we are reversing the table, and now you are helping us. You are helping many artists in the community. You are now part of our team of mentors, and you are doing one-on-one sessions, which, by the way, all friends here listening or watching can sign up for a mentoring session. There's a link under this video that you can use to do that through the Art NXT Level website, and also now helping us on a more consistent basis through monthly Q&As, specifically directed to studio practice too. Correct. So, that's really exciting. How we come to a community looking for help, but we don't come to get. We come to also give back and say, this is what I also have to offer, and helps everybody. We all grow because we're all
been phenomenal growth for me. I may not be doing the work like as much work, but I never did. I work very sort of sporadically. Well, what I do every day now is I get up and I believe, I have some form of, a belief in the world, belief in myself, belief in my family, that we can get up and do things. I may not be producing, but you know what? I'm thinking about the community that I'm involved in. It's fantastic. I can't say enough how grateful I am for having just, found you in 2019. What's fantastic. So, and now you've just extended the welcome to this massive group of people that have one thing in common, and that's we just want to be better artists, and we are sort of artists on a mission, as it were. So you're helping that mission, and you're still the guy in the lead, and we're still doing the rope.
Well, and with that, my friends, we're gonna wrap it up for today. Reminding you
what
that
about you
you're
now?
An artist on a mission. Yeah, you are an artist on a mission. And that is kind of like, I try to different seasons in my life think about how what motivates me, what kind of re-inspire me again. I'm a guy who gets easily bored when I'm doing something for too long, and so I have to. Yeah, I have to reinvent, kind of like rethink how I can motivate myself or tweak something. Like the hat, just putting the hat sideways, that might just change the whole day, the whole dynamic, the whole thing. Exactly, or just wearing a new hat or wearing it the reverse. But just tweaking something. And so this year for me has been this idea of I'm an artist on a mission. And I believe if I'm an artist on a mission, I feel unstoppable. I feel that, there will be obstacles coming my way, but I can manage them. There may be 20 hats I have to wear at a season, as we also go through different changes in life and things like that. But you know what? If I'm an artist on a mission, I can do this. And that has helped me. And that's kind of like the message that I'm also bringing up to the table to other artists, reminding everyone, you're an artist on a mission. In this year, we are all artists on a mission. And I think when we remember that, helps us to, at least helps me to equip myself, my brain, to say, I can do it. Because I think everything starts in the mind. If the mind doesn't believe it, it's not going to happen. So I have to believe it first.
Yeah, and that again goes back to what we were saying about social media. Instead of letting our brains, when we wake up in the morning, to say we can get up, we can do this, and we can do it immediately. I can post something immediately without having to go to social media. That's what I've learned. And you mentioned this before, but a lot of us, for whatever reason, we would get up, start looking through social media, and an hour later we'd be back in bed, depressed, anxious about the fact that we're not keeping up. And the point is, you have to find some balance. That balance is beautiful once you do find it. And and again, we just follow what you say and what the members of Art NXT Level or the vast community of artists out there, they give advice every day. This is how I do it. This is what I do, and everything it's like looking through an old art magazine. Something will inspire you. Maybe it's just a little section, but that will take you to the next level. And I think that's you couldn't have a better life. So
absolutely. With that, my friends, we're gonna wrap it up. Yes, and I have one homework for everybody who is listening right now or watching this, and that is, if you have a topic that you would like Drew and I to discuss, to have a conversation, an in-depth chat about, let us know. Send us a message either to Drew or me through social, and let us know what you would like us to chat about. We want to do this more than one time. We want to go back, but we want to talk about a topic that you want to know more, that you want to hear about, and please do so. And of course, if you listen to the podcast, do us a big favor and give us a review on the podcast if you like it, of course. and share it with all your friends. So Drew, my friend, good to see you. Have a great, awesome day.
Yes, thank you, my friend. It's always a great pleasure. You're ending your day. I'm starting mine today. So to you, I bid you a good night. And
thank you so much.
Check out our website at www.theartistnextlevel.com, where you will find our podcast library, learn about our upcoming webinars, find resources relevant to your career, and much more. Thanks for listening to today's podcast, and we'll see you at the next level.